Right on to our regular business meeting, and with that,
you still there, Neal?
Open the regular business
I'm going to leave the, I have to leave for a second, but I'm going to leave it running. If you have any comments,
2018.
I'll be right back, okay?
So the first item on the agenda, I'm sorry, Mr. General Manager, did you want to talk first about some of the things we've maybe heard here this morning? Push the button there on here. Right over there.
I'm back. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much. Yes, the one item I did want to perhaps make a couple comments on that was raised this morning is around the renewal of our benefits for some of our dependents that President Shirley Block had raised. So just as a update for those listening at home and in the audience this morning, so this is a process that is very common in government and business throughout the world. Mercer has a large global outfit that does exactly these types of reviews, and our first one, if I recall, the last one that was done at Trimet was back in 2012. And what this is a process to, it is, I have a slightly different perspective. It is not a cost reduction exercise. It's a verification exercise for those who should be getting dependent benefits and those perhaps whose circumstances have changed who may not qualify. So in this case, there was notifications to the union back in May. We entered a normal process that Mercer and many others have used for weeks at a hand, and in fact, at the end of it, elected to extend it another couple of weeks for the primary period for those circumstances who maybe needed a bit more time. We have just under 5,000 people who actually had applied, so I'd say clearly the communication did work. Unfortunately, if there are some people who did not apply, we do regret that, but people do need to, like we're doing your driver's license, you need to produce the documents that are important. Myself included, I had to go through the process as well as every other employee, whether it be union or non-union as well.
I'm
so
back.
We have since
did I miss anything, Neal?
Issue was raised to us.
No,
also allowed a small group who had not submitted their required documentation and verification of the same. We've extended this up until October 29th for effective for November 1st, to allow others a bit of extra time to submit and be verified that their paperwork is appropriate, because our circumstances in life sometimes do change. Dependents anymore, they get married, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to pass along to the board and the audience at home, there is a very consistent process that's been used in events just like this, and I don't think Trimet's, frankly, any exception to it. So
what's interesting is that what he said
I would also have to indicate
the last time this was
there is an open enrollment process that goes on an annual basis for dependents to apply as the effective
Yeah.
but we are casting that group up who may have even
Yeah, I know. That's what I objected to. How many times do you need to hear that?
Reasonable adaptation.
I mean,
you didn't change where you were born between 2012 and 2018.
And then they're trying to find people that get divorced or whatever, I
As
guess.
a follow-up, thank you,
cheapskate bastards, man.
to Kelsey. So I just heard Shirley say that they want to work with Trimet to improve the communication to some of the retirees that have, barriers to getting information. So will that be something that you would be
just tell them to
working
do
with
it.
ATU on?
Tell them to do it.
Sure. Well, we've actually,
You say you do
the
this.
ATU, in fact, does have the list that was provided as part of the follow-up letter to them. So I think they've got the same list we have now. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, well, come on, push it a little harder than
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. And I will point out, for those of you in the audience, or those who provided testimony on the ordinance related to the Balderrama case, I would encourage you to stay around, and we will have a pretty thorough briefing by our legal staff and those who've been involved in looking at this item, because we are very aware of the court decision and want to address that court decision in a very proactive and effective way. So stay tuned. That comes on under item number 5, entitled Ordinance and Public Hearing.
Oh, that's way down the list.
So with that, then, I'm going to move to board reports, and we have a few this morning. I'd like to ask Director Bauman to talk about the Accountability Committee activities over the last month.
Yes, good morning. There we go. Good morning, everyone. The accountability meeting had its second and final meeting of the year in September. I'm a new member member of the Accountability Committee. I took over the spot that Dr. Bethel held for the past 4 years. And I first would like to start out and give you a little history and purpose of the Accountability Committee. The committee was formed in response to recommendations in the Secretary of State's 2013 audit. In particular, there was a recommendation that Trimet create a transparency and accountability website to make it easier for the public to find key information about the agency. And it was also recommended that Trimet create a hotline so that employees could confidentially report fraud, waste, or abuse at the agency. And both of those efforts launched in 2014, and the committee now oversees both of those efforts. At the September meeting, we heard a report from Trimet Auditor Berlin and paralegal Christopher Connor regarding the 2018 ethics hotline reports to date. The report was that there had not been no Type 1 reports of fraud, waste, or abuse during 2018 that were required to be brought forward. Complaints that were reported on the ethics hotline.
Right. It's not an independent.
That did not come under the heading of
It's not an independent.
Handled through other
It should be an independent place where you report to, but
we also took a
it's
thorough tour
Trimet
of
themselves.
the Accountability and Transparency website. I hope you'll all take a look at it. There's a lot of great information there. We noted some items that needed updating, including removing some older audits and adding a 2017 audit report. Finally, here are some recent metrics and statistics for the Accountability Center. There were 756 total page views of the Transparency and Accountability Center webpage.
Oh yeah, no. They that whole Secretary of State audit was a joke. They do have an accountability center. I do use it all the time. They have the checkbook in there and some other things. They do the boards now online because of that. I don't know if you remember. I used to do the board. I used to put the board meetings online. Me and my partner Jason McGuff, we did that for a couple of years before Trimet actually took that back, that job. Actually, they never did it before.
We'll move on to the next item, which is entitled "The Committee on Accessible Transportation." But I understand they have not met, so we will not need a report on that item. So we'll move on to the next, which is the Metro Policy Advisory Committee meeting, as we call it, MPAC. Director Way.
Yes, good morning, everybody. So just a few things to report at the last MPAC meeting. And I also just really want to acknowledge the staff who are always at the MPAC meeting for giving me just really great, awesome, detailed notes as I'm still a new board member and trying to understand Metro and Trimet's role in this body. So shout out to the staff who have always been there and have given me really great notes to report on. So one of the things that we talked about was Southwest Corridor, in particular an equitable development strategy, as well as an update on light rail. So this was really a presentation by two of the Metro staff to give all of the MPAC committee members an update on where we're at with Southwest Corridor. They have also completed a draft environmental impact statement, and so that is, in particular, was very important to have a discussion on that, to look at what are the risks, what's the assessment that this project will take in the surrounding area. We have also talked about the partnership or the relationship between other local jurisdictions, particularly City of Portland. As you know, this is a huge project, many different jurisdictions that are involved, and so some of those relationships with the City of Portland, as well as other local and regional governments, is still being worked on. Metro was also awarded a Federal Transit Administration Equitable Transit-Oriented Development Grant. That is very long. So they were also awarded that to produce an equitable development strategy. The strategy will define efforts to ensure that individuals and families can continue to live, work, and thrive in the Southwest Corridor. And TriMet will continue to work closely with all partners on this strategy. So we didn't receive a lot of negative comments around that plan, and I think it's just an opportunity for TriMet to work with players like Metro in the region to really
Metro and TriMet are like one and the same
development.
Well, Metro is supposed to
the other discussion that we had was around a regional waste plan. Go to the next page. And that was basically just an update from Metro staff. The purpose was to review the draft actions and indicators, and this is for the 2030 regional.
You have to understand, of course, I'm sure you do understand that all of these government agencies work together as partners, really, to get whatever they need. You know, they're all part of the same system. And in this,
I mean, do you really think the public showed up to any of these meetings that she's talking about?
No, of course not. And there's really no reason. There's really no reason to show up either, because they're not. You're wasting your time. I mean, as well intentioned as these people are, you know that you're wasting your time. Whatever you have to say isn't going to be.
It's like the last guy who testified who said, I resigned because I realized this is a waste of time to be on this committee.
Right, that's right.
I can assure you.
Yes.
Thank
Happy
you
to be part of that.
My wife just said, you're talking to a
All right, well, that concludes our board reports. I'm going to turn now to the general manager. I'm sorry, you did have a comment. Yes. I did, excuse me. So yes, the Transit Equity Advisory Committee.
One more.
Director Gonzalez, I'm sorry.
Hey, Mr.
Thank you, President Warner. I didn't want to give up the opportunity to update the board and the community about our last TIAC meeting. We met 2 weeks ago, and there was a lot covered. There was a series of updates. First and foremost, the HOP update. We were able to share some of the latest rollout strategies with the members of TIAC. Talked about the switch out of paper ticketing into the hot passes. We talked about how some of the retailers are swapping out the passes, and begun the conversation around working with some of our community organizations that are our partners in issuing passes to some of their membership to figure out how we're going to be transitioning them into the use of the hot pass. So that was queued up. We also provided updates on the low-income fare program. I'm happy to report that we were, as of 2 weeks ago, just shy of 6,000.
I want the general manager's report.
Past that mark now.
I want
by and large, the metrics are showing
discussion on
a lot of uptake of the low income.
The discussion on the their ordinance that will supersede the.
I mean, wow! By the way, he's up to 6,000 people on the low income fare thing.
Yeah, I mean that's good, but there's 200,000 eligible, so you got to keep it in context.
So my question is, how much money in administrative costs has been spent to service 6,000 people? You know, if you take the actual time, the effort, people's salaries, it'll exceed the fare that you're trying to mitigate. No. This is an industrial complex here that is, grinding up people. Most people don't really understand the complexities of what's happening here and why it's happening. And there's really no way to educate the public because the mainstream media has the floor. And, bloggers like myself and you are just basically we're talking to me and you, and a handful of people that will watch what we have to say. I mean, when you take the actual cost of implementing this HOP thing, let alone the capitalization cost of putting it in, you're close to over $50 million.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you only need 25 million new riderships paying people, and you'll break even.
Yep. Right.
And which is not going to happen.
Nope.
Be a part of a system that
he looks like
really
a
at the end of the day is really trying to be available to the community and have them as partners, as co-owners of the system. So we are going to be having ongoing conversations with them around that. And we also talked about moving our date or our time for our meeting so that we can bring the on the Youth Commission who had a few members provide testimony this morning to actually be able to participate. So we're looking at shifting it into the end of the day, evening hours, so that some more organizations can participate.
Thank you. Good reporting.
Yeah, great reporting.
No, thank you for calling that to my attention. A very, very worthwhile report. He also knows that I'm probably a little jet lagged, and because I think I got in from a flight from Pittsburgh about midnight.
Oh, he was at Railvolution, wasn't he?
There'll be some other.
He was at Railvolution.
But with that
goddamn
turn to the general manager.
That goddamn industry. They have their little Railvolution every year, and I guess he was there. Paid for by Trimet, I'm
President. And to have 4 items to cover with you all this morning. The first one is really talking about September's ridership report. We are going to build on some of the comments Director Gonzalez made around low-income fare. We are going to also look, we'll get Dee Brookshire to come up and talk about our financial
I'll say one thing for Kelsey. He does look good, doesn't he?
2019.
He looks good.
And we've got a bit of an interesting one I'd like to review with you, a new technology we've purchased that's on our bus system. So we'll bring that up and actually do a bit of a demo for you here in just in a few minutes. So firstly, to the ridership for September, we provided nearly 7,775,000 trips, excuse me. This is on the start of our largest bus expansion in history, and we're up nearly 1% over September of last year. So it seems to be taking hold promptly, which is very encouraging for all of us. And in fact, it is the largest increase the agency's had since 2015. So the plans that the region, Trimet, and our partners have been working on are now underway. So a very exciting time here. It was also if we go back in 2015, it was also a time when we launched the MAX service. So sometimes when you continue a service, you see the rail line grow, sometimes at the expense of the bus system. So, but overall, the net ridership continues to grow here with this new expansion. So very
so it's up.
positive signals.
Ridership's up.
We do believe it is laying the groundwork for not only serving the existing ridership that's out there, and some we even heard about today about other adjustments that may be needed in the future, but also using it as a tool to shape the region to help encourage densification.
Yeah, there you go. There's your property development
future developments as well. So transit often is forgotten about, not just serving.
Yeah, that's what it is all about. It's about
an important instrument for
property development.
On average in September, we saw
she's right.
just over 300.
She's right. This is really what Trimet. That's their main emphasis, is property development, and that's what they do. They happen to have a transit agency also, but they're more interested in property development.
Which is up 1.9%. The weekday off-peak was up 0.7%. We did see a slight decrease in the weekend ridership at 0.1%, but I'll call that within tolerance and rounding for purposes of this report.
Flat.
Weekday trips were also up 0.6%, and the peak ridership took more than 2%. The frequent bus ridership was up 3.5%, and we think that was an increase driven by the upgrade to Line 73 to actually the frequent service status. In terms of the rail side, below the numbers, I think the West system continues to be a challenge for us. It was down, continues to be soft and down 5.7%.
I don't know, that surprised me. What happened with the West?
In terms of the other part of the rail network that we operate, MAX, it was a good month overall for MAX.
Yeah,
the ridership was up nearly 2%.
I don't know why it ended up failing so badly.
Ridership was up 1.8%, and the Orange Line continued to show strong results of being up 3%. So all in all,
still hasn't met
pretty
first year predictions
for the month in question, and more to come. Some of that might has contributed to perhaps by low-income fare. Also, the Hop Card continues to roll out as we remove the paper side.
Here's the ridership report.
Technology. So
bus is up, MAX is flat.
Any questions about ridership?
Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like to call up John Gardner, if I can. And as Director Gonzalez talked about in his report, the low-income fare program, again, another key driver of our ridership for the system and helping with accessibility to the system. It's been up and running for 4 months now. John has some great news, and I'm just going to turn it over to you, John, about your great work and your team's great work in these projects are sometimes very hard administratively to put into place, and your team deserves a lot of credit because, frankly, it's almost been seamless. So
here goes the goddamn flag.
Good morning, President Warner.
I think this guy's a hack, by the way.
First, I think instead of jumping into the numbers and updates, I think we want to show a quick, short video to hear from one of the program participants and her experience so far.
Are we going to see it? Are we not going to see it?
I am a low-income student. I'm a low-income mother.
Yes. This is on their YouTube
surviving
channel.
Just to get by and to try to make things work. Really, I grew up with a single mom of 4. I grew up on welfare. I raised myself. I have 2 little brothers that I have custody of. I have 2 kids that I threw into the mix. Right now, I'm just a full-time mom, going to school,
they have little pictures and everything.
Alive.
What's the point of showing this right now?
I wasn't able to buy monthly passes, so I was online buying them for cheaper than retail price simply because I couldn't afford the face value of them. I am on OHP, so when they asked me if I had proof to show eligibility of being low income, I had my Oregon Health plan to show it. These savings that I will get, I will use
$864 a year. Trimet spends probably 3 times that amount in administrative costs so she can save the $864 a year.
Yeah, I don't know what the cost of the program is, but I know this is a public.
Well, you got to figure in all the staff.
Yeah, I don't know
what
what
meetings.
Yeah,
all the donuts that were bought for the meetings.
All right, so as Doug said, this is a partnership. It's taken quite a team, and obviously that video was produced by J.C. Venena and Tia York, who gave us a better picture that can obviously tell more, the old 1,000 words example. But our success, I think, is also not just our success, it's the success of our provider community. I just wanted to recognize a few of those organizations. Yes. Southeast Works, WorkSource Gresham, PCC, PSU, the Urban League of Portland, Central Cultural, ERCO, Africa House, Asian Family Services, WorkSource Clackamas,
and what he doesn't tell you,
we're in the process of developing intergovernmental agreements with the Department of Human Services across the 3 county areas, as well as public housing. And so I think in the next 2 weeks we'll have 23 partner sites and registered locations, and by the end of the year we should have 32 organizations that are providing eligibility support and registration across the region. West Charlie, the program
and I also,
over 200
if they really wanted to help the poor, these passes should be free. They still charge them. You still got to pony up for it.
I mean, folks are just.
I mean, if you're really wanting to help people that are poverty, you give them a free pass, for Christ's sake. Why do they find it necessary to still charge for these people that are already struggling? I mean, okay, it's a better deal, but give them a free pass. Jeez, what's the big deal?
Over 6,300 individuals.
As my wife just put it, it will cost Trimet administratively a lot less to just give them the free pass.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
The folks who need it.
I mean, the fact that they still want money out of you just really tells you a story. You know what I mean?
As I said, they give it to you with the left hand and take it out your right
over 133
pocket.
individuals have had their citations removed by going in and signing up for the low-income fair program.
130?
So we're excited to see that this is having additional benefits to folks on the system.
All right. Well, give them a plus for that, okay?
All right. Again,
I'll give them a +1 for that. That's a +1.
Folks are using the age of the
I can't hear it.
on the location, and we think it's going to really help us inform our outreach strategy and approach moving forward. And like many others here today, I also was out of town yesterday and just flew back last night. But I was out of town sort of celebrating and explaining what we've done so far with other organizations and transportation programs who've also done low-income fare programs. So just for context, New York, Denver, King County up in Seattle, and San Francisco all were being sort of recognized as was Portland with our efforts to date.
Yeah, so he was at
and as Doug said, it's been fairly seamless. I mean, we had about 9 months of community partnership and collaboration to develop the program approach. So, and we sort of soft launched, and just now we're starting to roll out the communication and the marketing around the initiative. But to give you context for how successful we are, King County, after 3 years, we're celebrating that they're enrolling about 2,000 people a month, and we, after about 3.5 months, are enrolling 1,800 people a month. So we've learned from many of the folks that come before us to understand how to make this even easier for our riders to participate in, and so far so good. So we look forward to coming back in the months ahead and giving you an additional update. Thank you.
Questions for John?
Bing, that's not me.
I guess I just want to make a comment, John. Thanks for your leadership and calm guiding hand on this. It's noticed, and I think we're successful because of you and your team that have been working on this. I just have a
John Gardner, by the way, was the one that stated on camera that people evade fear because they're just trying to cheat. He made that comment. They're cheaters. He blanketly accused everybody of most people don't pay the fare because they're trying to get away with it.
On that, we're not necessarily interested in enrolling 100,000 people unless they need the program. So it really is about how many folks want to enroll and use the program. And right now we have about an 86% participation rate. So 86% of the people that sign up and register go down and get their card. And as long as that trend continues, I think we'll be well beyond 18,000 by the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Congratulations again. And I think part of it, the initial part is getting the awareness up, the enrollment up, as you can see, underway. But I think the real prize is going to be in use. So the goal is to have people not only have the card, but use it as a great way to be as part of their livelihood and open up new opportunities to increase their livability in this region. So I think we're on our way. And thanks to John.
They always have the buzzword.
Next, as you can see already here, is Steve Brookshire, our Chief Financial Officer, to cover our first quarter 2019 financial results. So over to you, Dee.
Good morning. President Warner, members of the board. I'm here to bring you the first quarter results for fiscal year 19. You received a fairly detailed report about the first quarter that gave you the ins and outs and ups and downs of the various cost centers within the district. I'm just going to hit a few of the high points here and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay.
So total revenue for the quarter was below budget by $1.4 million, but just 1.1%. Total operating expenses below budget by $12.8 million, or 8.7%. But the net results from operations is better than budget by $11.5 million.
Does that mean below?
Our payroll tax revenues were slightly under budget by $2 million, 2.2%. We expect this to catch up. However, the total payroll tax revenue grew 4.5% compared to the first quarter of last year. Excuse me. Our passenger revenue was $400,000, 1.4% lower than budget, possibly impacted by the LRB closures for the rail crossing improvements in August of 2018. Expenses, our system operating expenses were $5.4 million under budget, 3.9%. $8.5 million under budget in operations. That's 8.4% of
How the hell are they saving them?
Our operating project expenses, these are not our capital projects, these are operating projects related to the system, were $2.7 million less than budget. And that really ends my report, unless you have any questions.
Savings alone, one of these
right where we want to be.
In the millions of dollars.
I do have a question about the passenger revenue being lower than budgeted.
Right.
Have the impacts of the low-income fare and the hop card fare capping, have they shown up in those fare revenues?
We believe that could be one reason why.
Not yet.
Really
that hasn't shown up
very
anywhere.
closely. We expected there to be a loss in fare revenue due to the fare capping. We weren't sure exactly when it was going to occur because we actually aren't fully utilizing the hop card system yet. So it's all part of that.
I'm curious, what's the explanation for the under budget for all those items? What's the explanation? Where's the explanation? Is it lower salaries, lower benefits? What is it?
Whenever we see on the expense side of things, we miss budget. Of course, this is the positive side. There's always the question that comes up in my mind, of course, that are these savings that will continue forward, or essentially are these savings that essentially we will have to actually pay for in the future? I think about capital projects,
explain
or things of that sort.
How did you save that money? I want to hear how.
In this fiscal year, as opposed to actual pure savings that will flow through to the end of our budget performance for this fiscal year.
That's a very good point. What we try to do is develop a seasonal aspect to our budget. Mm-hmm. We try to budget when the expenses are going to occur instead of just taking a straight line. Some things are hard to predict. For example, we budget for positions for vacancies to be filled, and yet they're not filled because of a variety of reasons, or delays in the recruitment processes.
Oh.
So those will show up as a positive variance.
Mm-hmm. So they can't get enough bus operators.
We budget for a certain amount of scheduled overtime, for example. If that's not met, then there is another positive variance. There are a number of positive variances that likely will pick up in the later part of the year that are just unexpected at this point in time. Our attraction power, while we try to predict what it's going to be, it's fairly easy to predict. There are always some changes, some variances that don't make it into the numbers, but we'll catch up over time. I think after the third quarter, we'll be able to.
Well, it'd be nice if she would have detailed how those savings came about, because she knows where it came from.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
Thank you, Dee. So maybe what I'll do, if I'd like to introduce A.J. O'Connor, if he could just work his way up here. We're going to cover off with you a recent technology purchase we've implemented. It's taken a while, but I think it's, as an extremely busy transportation authority, we have many things on the plate, and I'll give you an example. We've talked about Division Transit, Southwest Corridor, the implementation of HP 17, our fourth bus facility, state of good repair, the many millions we're deploying to make sure our system's safe and robust, the conversion to non-diesel fleet, and the low-income fare. I could just go on a long list, but despite that, we cannot lose sight of the fact to become more and more of a customer-centric agency. At the top of this, one of the key reasons we exist is to take care of the people we serve. And what we're about to see here is a technology that we have purchased, and through the IT and the transportation team's implementation, I think it's a tool, as a person who uses the bus pretty well every day, it was very clear to me in using the bus system, every time we do what we call a sheet change, where our great operators sign up for the next routes they want to pick based on seniority. You could be a 30-year great transit operator, or you could be a brand new person with your first time out on the system. Either way, if you haven't been on that route, everything goes back to zero the second that you start that first service, like we do in September every year. What we did see was there were a lot of customers who would get angst every time a great operator would maybe not know the route because they haven't gone through it enough.
Oh, wait.
And so we'd actually go off route, and the operators create anxiety that may not need to exist.
That's good.
New or long tenured. And our customers, they know the route sometimes better than the operators do because they're on it every day,
That's for sure.
all shifts, all the time. So this is a technology we're trying to help support our operators
GPS thing
to be on top of the great work they do today, but also provide a consistency in the service we provide. And yes,
I think he's talking about the GPS that they installed. Unfortunately, it's not working correctly.
I don't know about you, but when I first started, I did like vacation relief, and my first week I had 5 new routes.
Right. I mean, the way they don't train operators on routes.
Right, and it took. I went out on my own time and drove every one of those routes.
That's what they expect you to do, and that's not proper.
Video that will explain the details, but I'm going to frame it first. As Doug mentioned, this is a software module that is added to our existing CAD AVL or bus dispatch system.
It's not working right either, by the way.
We received the software last January,
I listen to the operations. That's one of my major sources of entertainment is a Trimet scanner. I listen, okay? I'm listening in. this not working. This shit's not working. I don't know what the fail rate is, but I certainly hear a lot of operators getting lost by this.
Department and Cindy Diebert and Jeff Lucius spent from January until September 2nd when we went live with the system, testing the system, improving the algorithm with our vendor, and verifying the routes and potential trouble spots, trying to ensure that we had as near a perfect launch on September 2nd as we could. So with that, we'll watch the short video, and then Celio or I can answer any questions you might have.
You would be given this thick book, thicker than the book, which had not only a sheet for a route, but the map of every route, because you were expected to go anywhere at any time. And it would never fail in this 3-ring binder that you were given, that the L or R for the turn that you were supposed to make at a particular street, that's where the punch for the whole book.
See, look at this is what they got now. Well, that was lovely. Okay.
So is this the same system that's
So as you can see, it's very similar to what you might have in your car on TomTom or Google Maps. The one major difference is instead of just routing on the existing street routes and highways, we actually have to match it to the route. So a lot of data verification and route checking is what basically took place between January when we received the software and September 2nd when we went live.
Okay.
What I might add here is that as we launch this, we've loaded every bus route we have into this. And so we'll eventually, as we get to diverting snow plans, reroutes, things of that nature, that becomes really important. So it's not just the Waze, if you will, for those who use Waze on a bus system. It's got more dynamics built into it. And over time, we want to develop files that we can actually overlay for our bus operators, our high accident intersections. So it can give them a signal that you're approaching a high accident intersection. You can tap into that, I'll call file, and say, you should be aware you're approaching this, to help them ensure that they and our assets, our valuable passengers, are taken care of as well. So to use it not only as a customer focus tool, but also as a risk mitigation tool as well. So we're trying to take this and move it and evolve it to something that works for Trimet. So.
I have a question for you about the screen versus the auditory part. Is the auditory part something that is in their ear, or is it just spoken out like it is in a car?
It's spoken out just like it's in a car. There's a speaker on that, what's called the MDT, the screen that you saw. There's a speaker there that where the sound comes from.
Okay, and it's loud enough so that they can actually
they can
hear
adjust
it.
the volume.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, good luck with
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a few questions. So I know that this turn-by-turn software just went into effect this fall, so probably we're like a month in. Is that
about
correct?
6 weeks.
So will there be a comparison analysis looking 6 months, into the future, a year from now, in terms of how this particular program is improving our efficiency, just so that we know what are we comparing this to when we look, at whether or not we want to make this investment in the future.
We're definitely always monitoring on-time performance and operator performance, and so that's a constant measure, and not all operators are using this. So as Doug said, it's something they can turn on or off. So typically the veteran operators, most senior operators, are probably not going to turn it on. We do not have a specific metric where we're looking at operators using it. We can see when they turn it on and off, but we would expect to see any improvement in the general already KPIs that exist in terms of people going off route. For example, we should see a reduction. That's probably the primary area where we'll see a reduction.
I think my request as a board member, which I don't know, I think would be helpful, is to have a year from now, or even a quarterly type of report where we can see, is this helping the newest operators with their routes? That would be, I think, important to see if we have any data that we can compare their experiences to.
We can certainly survey operators and look at the metrics. We do have, when we launched this, we put in every operator pouch, which is what they take out with them, basically a paper form that said, give us your feedback. Is there something where it's not performing or you like it? And so far that feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. There have been a few places where we're looking into where they have reported that there is an issue. But yes, we can definitely do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think from an evaluation standpoint, that would be important to look at.
Yes, just to note, the central system right now, it's recording anytime a vehicle goes off route, like AJ mentioned. So that's something we're already collecting, and we could do comparison in the future.
Great. Thanks.
And I had a question as well. In light of the Waze example, is there any discussion or intent at this point to have the system available for the public to interact with, as in ways where you have potholes or whatnot? If there's any safety issues or anything, has there been any discussion about letting folks either access information or contribute information?
Not through this system, because this resides on the computer, on the bus, on that NDT, and it's designed solely to operate in that environment. It's not designed for any kind of mobile app or customer interaction in that regard. But as Doug made the point, that MDT is where operators can note all kinds of different things, and we can add button pushes. So like if there's potholes or safety issues, the operator can note that.
Frozen roads and whatnot.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
I think it's an excellent point by Director Gonzalez. I think we should never say never. I think there's some base we're trying to get in place, but I think the more we can open our system up, whether it be our own social media or these other experiences, to connect our customers to our experience openly, I think we should be open to looking at those things. It doesn't offer it today, but tomorrow maybe.
Yeah, and we probably do it on something on the phone that everybody has as opposed to on the bus.
I'd like to add, what it does feed right now in real time to the customers is anytime a route changes or stops are curtailed.
I just have a question. I'm sorry if you've already covered it, but what is the cost of this new software?
It was just under $500,000. It was $496,000.
And that's for the current fiscal year, or is that? And
that's a one-time only. Most of that was licensing fees.
So is it safe to assume that we're piloting this?
No. We've purchased it, and it's on all fixed route buses.
Okay, so every year we're going to be paying.
No, we're done.
One time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But we basically purchased the module.
Yes,
if you will.
Yes.
And then with upgrades to software and things like that, which happens a lot in technology. Just speaking of my iPhone 10, I got a software update. Will there be an additional cost to the $500,000 yearly?
Right now we're under warranty, so that any kind of updates during that warranty will happen, and the entire CAD system is still not quite accepted. We're still under warranty, so during that time frame, any regular software updates we're automatically going to get. At the conclusion of that warranty period, we will need to enter into a support agreement within it, which would include any kind of additional software updates after that.
Okay, thanks.
And another follow-up, was there any customization for the rollout of this for us, or was this an off-the-shelf solution?
Nothing is ever off the shelf. That's what the 9 months, we got it in January and we didn't launch it till September 2nd, and that's what Celio and our training department were testing it. They found a flaw in the way, well, I shouldn't say flaw. Denver, for example, had launched the same system, this exact same module, and used the existing algorithm.
Nothing interesting
that was,
here,
off
really.
the shelf. And it worked well for them.
The lesson
the way
to be learned is from the initial PDS system, which was installed when you and I were there, the first happened was this company that put it in went bankrupt, if you recall.
Yes.
And so there was no one to do any fixing or updates.
Right.
And so, quote, Trimet said, we got a great deal on this system, except that it doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
And they took for a long time, couldn't get anyone to pick up the contract or fix it, because in the contract that they put out for bid, it said that the new company would be responsible for all the sins of the past. And until they eliminated that clause, there wasn't anyone who's going to pick up that contract. And so my question is, what's the viability of this company that just...
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I don't have the slightest...
So if they're not around in 2 years, now what?
Yeah. That's more taxpayer money where that comes from.
With a different system. So I would say a decade at least before we're making a major shift. As board member Y indicated, technology is always changing. And somewhere in the next decade, we'll be looking at what do we do with this entire CAD system? Do we stay within it or these typical vendors? I have a feeling that, I don't have a feeling, I'm pretty confident that there's going to be way more competitors. And at that time, we would probably replace it and include this functionality as part of that base contract.
Thank you. I might just add is we look at this in isolation today, but I think if we zoom back out and we look at, like the example that Director Way talked about with the iPhone, there's a convergence going on in this industry of mobility, not just buses, let alone trains. I think there's technologies and other new interfaces we're going to have to look at as we manage scooters, Lyft, Uber, taxis, all these combinations of other ways to get around, and then how do you optimize those together? So I think there's a potential larger mobility integration step that will come down the road, and whether this is part of that or not, I think that it will be yet to be seen.
I just had one question. My assumption is this would be a really great tool to give drivers information about, again, odd turns or odd areas on the route, as well as information about specific
Get to the
stops
goddamn
shows if there's an issue with
ordinance. Stop wasting our time.
Example, or pick up for the ramps. Is that included in this kind of?
This particular purchase was only for the fixed route system. The Lyft system already had, because it's on-demand service, it already had routing. The difference is the Lyft system does not have a fixed route, so we don't have a schedule that we have published. But Lyft has been using this, something like this, for years.
I mean, I was looking at any stop on our fixed route system. There's probably ways where you stop where you can stop, but you best take advantage of somebody assisting him to get on with a wheelchair, and I didn't know whether that kind of information could be included in that description when it tells you to stop.
That is something that we could add. It's not there right now, but that is something we can add.
Okay, thanks.
How nice.
Again, thank you. Great work by you and the team getting this out, and thanks to all the operators. We had these displayed at like Center Street and such for operators to kind of, I'll call, kick the tires, if you will, on it. And I think the feedback overall was very supportive. And riding the system, when I check in with them, I think, seem to be very, very happy with it when they use it. But it's their choice to be in control. It's just a support aid tool for them, but ultimately they must remain in control. So thanks, gentlemen. Great work, Mr. President. That concludes my report this morning. Unless there's any questions any of the members of the board have.
Any further questions for the General Manager?
No.
Seeing none, and let's move on to the consent agenda.
All right, here we go.
For those of you watching in the audience for the first time, items on our